Cheers, Rockets fans. Welcome to The Locker Line, an exclusive podcast from the home of the Rockets.
Whoa!
Sports Talk 790.
Rockets!
The Locker Line is proudly served to you by Carbox Clutch City Lager.
It is good!
Oh, yeah? Red Nation, get ready. Get ready. The Locker Line starts now.
Welcome aboard. Welcome back to another episode of The Lager Line, brought to you by, as always, Clutch City Lager of Carbach Brewing. I'm your host, Ben DuBose. I contribute to Sports Talk 790, the official flagship radio station of the Rockets in Houston, and I am the editor of USA Today's Rockets Wire blog, which covers the Rockets, the official USA Today sports media group home for Houston Rockets coverage. Today, as we're recapping the Rockets' 97-84 win in the third game of the Las Vegas Summer League, Rockets now 2-1 in Summer League play. I'm joined by my colleague and good friend, Brian Barefield. You may know him best as Big Sarge Sports on Twitter. Sarge has been out in Las Vegas for much of the past week where he's been following the Rockets. So while I can certainly give you observations that I've seen watching on TV in Houston, Sarge can do even better since he's had boots on the ground in Vegas watching this team, and really an exciting week. It didn't start off well with the Rockets losing the opener to the Magic, but they've since taken the last two games against the Thunder and now convincingly the 13-point win on Monday night against the Spurs. So Sarge, first things first, how are you? How was Vegas?
Oh man, I'm doing great. Vegas was hot. I had been out in Vegas January for my birthday. My wife took me out there for my birthday for the very first time. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I thought that it would be one of those things where the weather stayed the same. But when I got back out there, man, Ben, let me tell you something. That sun was very disrespectful. It got up to 112 degrees. And the Lyft driver told us that it's a good thing that we came out this month because next month in August, it's supposed to get up to 125 degrees. I think that I underestimated and forgot that it's the desert. Yeah, it was hot, but it was good.
Sadly, it's not that much hotter than Houston. I know it's only, 10 degrees, but geez, yeah, you're probably right. That 10 degrees does make an extra difference. Once you get above 110, it's just flat out absurd. Anyway,
it's dry.
And that is a difference. And in some ways, J.J. Watt said recently, they asked him about Arizona heat versus Houston heat. And he actually said Houston heat was worse because, of course, there's humidity. Whereas in Arizona and Vegas, it's the desert, so it's dry. Yes. But anyway, we can talk heat and humidity another time. Let's talk hoops now. Monday night's game against the Spurs, really just a balanced effort all the way around. Jabari Smith, the best game of his Summer League tenure to date, or at least most efficient game. 19 points, 9 boards, 2 steals, shot 50% from the field, 6 of 12. 3 of 5 on three-pointers. That's 60%. Rockets were plus 23 in the 28 minutes that Jabari played, minus 10 in the 12 that he didn't. So that tells you what the type of impact that he's making. Fellow rookie Tari Eason, 22 points, 10 boards in his 29 minutes, made 9 of 16 shots after he was inefficient in game 1. He's been 50% or better the last 2 games. He's also made a combined 3 of 6 from three-point range in that span, and 3 consecutive double-doubles for Tari Eason to start his career. Great and versatile defender as well. Daishen Nix, 18 points, 6 assists, shot 60%, 3 of 5 from three-point range, made nearly 50% of his shots overall, 7-15 from the field. And then Josh Christopher, 18 points, 4 steals, 3 assists in his 28 minutes, made 6 of 13 shots, and most of those came in the fourth quarter, and it was winning time. Josh put the game away, and really it was a more interesting approach from the Rockets on offense. I felt like for the first 30 or 35 minutes, they let Daishen Nix run the floor like a traditional floor general, and that seemed to help guys like Jabari and Tari get involved. And then the last 5 minutes, when it was there for the taking, they sort of gave Josh Christopher the keys and said, hey, let's take can you take us home? And that's exactly what he did. I know you're going to be writing about Josh Christopher later tonight or tomorrow for Rockets Wire, so I'll tease to that. But I want to start with Jabari, Sarge, because what stood out to me about Jabari, he's had such a level-headed approach really since draft night. It started with him expecting to go number 1. He fell to number 3. Then you look at these first couple of games in Vegas in which he defended well, but did not shoot anywhere near to his expectations. It felt like he was just constantly getting hit with adversity. Paolo came out in the opener, shot incredibly well. And then game 2, Jabari was holding his own against Chet. But when you start 2 of 14 shooting, it's easy to get frustrated. You could see it on his face at times, but he stuck with it. Eventually, the shots fell. Had a great closing 5 minutes against the Thunder, and really he was the best player on the floor that game. I think he was the best player on the floor tonight, and the shots did fall. And what sort of sticks out to me about Jabari is, again, just how level-headed he is. He sticks with it. And even when things aren't going his way, he doesn't sulk. He doesn't say, this isn't my night. He seems to keep that same process-oriented, level-headed approach that I think it's going to serve him well, because when you're a young player in the NBA, there's going to be lots of ups and downs. There's going to be things that don't go your way, just like we saw with Jalen Green during his rookie season last year. And the thing is, can you stick with it? Can you keep your confidence high? Can you not build bad habits? I know it's early. Summer League is not regular season basketball, but there is some pressure on him, especially going up against Paolo and Chet to start Summer League. And to me, what you see from him on the floor mirrors what you hear from him in the interviews in terms of just the overall calmness. And I think that serves him well in terms of his future development. Sarge, when you went out in Vegas, is that the read that you get when you talk to Jabari, when you see him? Because to me, I'm just struck by, there's a lot of young guys out there, but he just seems, even relative to other young guys, so calm, so composed. And I think that's going to help him a lot in his career as he tries to adjust and handle adversity.
I think the thing that mostly stands out about Jabari, and it probably comes from his upbringing, growing up with his dad and his dad playing in the NBA and his dad being one of those guys who knows what it takes to get to the next level. I think that's what makes Jabari Smith such a level-headed guy, and nothing really rattles him too much. I remember after the game Saturday against the Oklahoma City Thunder, I asked him, how he was able to recover from having such a horrible shooting night for the first 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, when it counted, he had a couple of shots, had a big block, played great defense. And he said it's one of those things where you just got to have a short-term memory. And so that's what I like about Jabari Smith. He is one of those guys who is level-headed and doesn't let anything get to him, doesn't get rattled. And I've seen that in practice. I think that for Jabari Smith, he fell to the right situation. When I look at the first 3 draft picks and Paolo Banchero to the Magic, when I look at Chet Holmgren to the Oklahoma City Thunder, I look at those two and I say Paolo is going to be needed to score. He is already polished enough to be able to get his shot off in the NBA, but that's what the Orlando Magic is going to need. Chet fits right in with Josh Giddey and what he has going on. And when you look at Jabari Smith Jr., I know that he wanted to go number 1. Those guys have that ego about they have that ego and that pride inside about wanting to go number 1. But he fell to the right situation with the way that he plays, and once you combine him with Jalen Green and you combine him with Kevin Porter Jr., he's going to be that second, third option for the Rockets, and it's going to take a lot of pressure off him. It's going to relieve a lot of that stress and that pressure of having to perform. He's going to go into a system where he can just play, and that's what I like, and that's what I've seen so much with him. He's one of those guys that just plays. The way that he played tonight, you could see it coming in practice. A lot of people don't realize Jabari Smith Jr. is a very good jump shooter. He is a very good shooter. Watching him shoot in practice, I'll tell you a story real quick. They do these drills where, they're on both ends of the court. You may have 4 players on one end and 4 players on the other, and they shoot from different spots going to 6. When, they'll get to 5 and Jabari will come around, and before he even grabs the ball, Coach Higgins will scream out game, and Jabari would hit it. He has his form. He's a really, really good shooter. And now that he's starting to put it all together, I like the fact that on how mature he was in the game against the San Antonio Spurs as well, because I don't know if you noticed this or not. There was one point where his jump shot wasn't falling. And so he went into the post. And once he got into the post, he played the post position, went to the basket. So he started to play closer to the basket, working his game from the inside back out instead of working it from the outside in. So that's what I've seen from that young man. I've seen the steady growth in him over these 3 games, and I'm looking forward to seeing him this season.
One of the things that really surprises me about Jabari, and I guess it shouldn't, because when you look at his form, it's absolutely textbook. But so many guys, when they come from college to the pros or the G League pathway, well, I shouldn't say the G League pathway because, of course, you are playing professional environment there, but primarily from college, or even if you're just 1 year removed, the NBA three-point line being so much longer than high school and college, it's something that can take some time to adjust to, and especially the above the break threes. We're talking from the wings and especially up top. Those can be the ones, especially for a big guy, that are tough to adjust to because it's so much longer than they're accustomed to. But quite frankly, that's what he looks most comfortable shooting. When he gets those up top or slightly, in one of the slots, just off the top, he looks dead eye every time. And it's just so impressive. Again, the form we knew from just watching his college clips, but the fact that it truly does extend to NBA three-point range this quickly is really, really telling. Because even when the shots weren't there, especially that game one, some of it was them either rimming in and out, or the Rockets didn't really have their offense set yet. A lot of people forget that there's not a lot of practice time. These guys are so young, and they really just started practicing together last week. So you get all these armchair coaches on Twitter calling out Rick Higgins and whoever else is on the staff. The bottom line is anybody would look bad when they only have, at least at times, 1 week of prep time before they go out there with guys that are brand new to the NBA. It always looks a little bit rough. And to me, for Jabari, the real turning point, and I think for the team as well, because, of course, when you get Jabari playing well, it makes the team as a whole play well because he's just that important to them. But it was midway through that first game against the Magic. The first half, Josh Christopher was crazy high usage, but they really struggled to get anybody else the ball. The second half of that game, I think Jabari had 7 or 8 points. He made a couple of threes in there. He talked with you after the game and said, he really settled in, and he admitted there was a little bit of nerves starting off, which could have been a factor too. But I think the other part of it is that the Rockets really, since halftime of that first game, and then especially the last 2 games, they've let Josh pick his spots more as opposed to truly running the offense. Because Josh, at his best, is not a point guard. He's a combo guard who can choose when he wants to be aggressive, pick his spots. Clearly, he's not going to be able to do that for 40 minutes or he's going to run out of gas. And so I think with the way they used him today was ideal. Let him go off late in the game when it's close and take over. But for the majority of those games, they ran the offense a lot more through the point guards, TyTy Washington, but especially Daishen Nix, who's looked really, really good the last 2 games. And I think that's coincided with Jabari Smith getting a lot more clean looks, threes that are in rhythm. And you said it during the game on Saturday, Sarge. He started off 3 of 16. You tweeted out that he easily could be 10 of 16 because he was getting the shots that he wanted, and the misses were, quite frankly, in and out. They were right on. The form was good. And really, to me, what it shows you, you talked about him being a great fit with the Rockets because they do have these other playmakers. People talk about Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr. You also can't forget Alperen Şengün, who, even though he's a big man, he is a great passer. He can hit other guys and get them the ball in their spots. And to me, the pick up in Jabari's play and now his shooting finally, although that was destined to come, his shooting is just, there's way too much of a track record. He's way too good to struggle for an entire summer league. The shooting was just a matter of when, not if. But the bottom line is when the Rockets started getting a more structured offense, instead of just going, and it felt like that first half of the first game, they went ISO heavy. And really, again, Rick Higgins had only had like a week of practice time. So it's not like they really had a system in place anyway. But it feels like to me, once they dialed down the Josh Christopher usage a little bit, started running more structured sets with Daishen Nix and TyTy Washington, that's been to the betterment of Jabari Smith, and it's been to the betterment of the team. Is that fair?
Oh, yes, of course. And, I look at Jabari Smith Jr. as Chris Bosh when he played with the Miami Heat. He's playing with 2 players in Kevin Porter Jr. and with Jalen Green that can get downhill. And, if he can get into that pick and pop spot, and we know that he can shoot, he's going to be able to have those open shots all the time. And like you mentioned, with Alperen Şengün on the floor, who sees the floor very, very well, all he has to do is move and get to a spot, and Alperen will make sure that he gets that pass. And so you remember when Chris Bosh was with the Miami Heat, LeBron would get to the paint and kick it out to him, or Dwayne Wade would get into the paint and kick it out to him, and he would hit that open shot. So those are going to be the shots that he has. And going back to game 1, and I did a deep dive on this. Going back to game 1, I know that he was going up against Paolo Banchero. And Paolo Banchero, let me say this. He should have been the number 1 overall pick. He should have went where he went. I thought And I'm going to be honest with you. I thought that the Houston Rockets would have gotten him, but when Orlando took him, I could see why. Because I had an NBA scout reach out to me and tell me that Paulo Banchero reminds him a lot of Devin Booker, meaning that he can get any shot that he wants, and he already knows the spots that he needs to be. He gets to NBA spots, and it takes rookies, 1 or 2 years to be able to learn those spots. And so, like I said earlier, with Jabari Smith Jr. fall into the Houston Rockets, he's where he needs to be. But that first half of that Orlando Magic game, Paulo outplayed him hands down. And Coach Higgins told us you could feel the animosity. This is what he told us in practice the very next day. He said you could feel, the anxiety, not animosity. You could feel the anxiety in him. You could feel the nerves in him. And when he settled down, he played a lot better in that second half, whereas Paulo didn't play as well. And then in the second game, he came out very aggressive, wanted to shoot the ball more, and that's what he did. And against the San Antonio Spurs, he started to put together a complete game, and that's what I like about him. We talked about Josh Christopher, and let me say something about him real quick, because yesterday during practice, yesterday after practice, Coach Higgins said that Josh is very aggressive. Josh is really good at getting to the paint, but what Josh needs to do better at is driving and kicking the ball out. Stop trying to go up against so many defenders. But Ben, when I look at it, Josh's favorite player is Kobe Bryant. When you look at the shot chart from the last 3 games and look at the shots that he's taking, it's clear to me that what Josh is working on is his finish at the rim and his mid-range game. He's not taking a lot of three-pointers. He's not taking a lot of ill-advised shots. He's taking a lot of shots at the rim and then the mid-range, the mid-range game. And so I could see that when I look at the chart and look at the makes and the misses, and I said, these shots are almost identical for the first 3 games. And so Josh came out tonight, and Josh came out against San Antonio Spurs, and he was very passive at first. But when they needed him to take over, he took over, and I was glad to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that speaks to his potential role at the NBA, because we can see the Rockets do not want to develop him purely as a point guard. That's why they're giving reps to Daishen Nix. That's why they drafted TyTy Washington. They see Josh as much more of a combo guard. And by being that combo guard, he's going to have a lot of minutes where he comes off the bench when Jalen is resting. And then he can be fairly high usage, aggressive attack. And I think that's really the way to use him best in this upcoming season. And you don't want to pigeonhole a guy for his whole career because he's only 20 years old. We'll see what he develops into over the coming years, but at least for the foreseeable future, you want to play to his role. And his best role right now is as that microwave, that guy that can get really hot off the bench. He's not going to get as many minutes as he has in summer league, but he can play a similar style, at least to the last 2 games. Game 1, as you mentioned, at least the first half, well, he certainly scored a lot of points, but as you pointed out, he was a little out of control at times. I think the last 2 games, he's been a little bit better at picking his spots. I want to transition to talking about Tari Eason, who, as I mentioned, leading off, he's had 3 straight double-doubles. He's been a defensive force, very versatile from the moment he stepped on the floor, which a lot of us expected. And truth be told, he's the oldest Rockets prospect, a whopping 21 years old, but he did play 2 high major seasons at Cincinnati and LSU. So in theory, he should be a bit more ready than some of these other guys to contribute day one. You can see his body, his physique, he's ripped. He's got the massive hands that can do so much. But yet going from, game 1 to game 3, he's gotten a lot more efficient as well. By the way, you mentioned Paolo Banchero. It's funny, Chancellor Johnson, the reporter for KPRC, the NBC affiliate here in Houston, he posted a clip from Tari picking up Paolo in game 1. And it was when Jabari called for the switch and Tari goes, no, back up. And then Eason forced him into like a 19-footer, which he missed. And Chancellor's got all these guys on Twitter ratioing him, basically saying, dude, he didn't get the stop. Paolo just missed the shot. And I'm sitting here like, what NBA basketball are you watching in which you think that, Tari is going to eat Paolo alive? Paolo is a legit 3-level scorer you're not going to be able to stop him from getting to any spot. What you want is to make him take the least efficient shot that you reasonably can. And when you consider that he can make threes, that he can get to the rim, if you can make Paolo take a slightly off balance 19-footer and put a bit of a hand in his face, that's a win. And anybody expecting more than that just has no realistic understanding of NBA defense, because these elite guys, these elite shot creators, which I think Paolo can be very early in his career, I think that's why he's probably the safest bet as far as the number one. The bottom line is you're not, in most cases, I mean, once in a while you'll get a block, but for the most part, you're not going to just swallow them whole. You're just going to have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. And I was going to say, if anybody knows Paolo, it's Tari Eason.
Yeah.
That's right. Played in Seattle, and the last time they actually met on the court was the 2020 Washington State 3A championship game, where Tari Eason and his team beat Paolo. Tari Eason played for Garfield, and Paolo Banchero played for O'Day, and they beat them. I think his score was 69-44. And if you look at the clips from that game, if you look at the highlights, it wasn't just a game where Tari didn't shine. Tari shined to the point where Brandon Roy told him before the game, I need you to be Superman. Like, look for your teammates, but I need you to be Superman as well. And so Tari does know, he has a little bit of an edge when it comes to playing against Paolo Banchero. But what people don't realize is when you look at Jabari and you see his wingspan, and people don't realize that, Tari has almost just a bigger wingspan and shorter. His wingspan is just as long as Jabari's is. And so when you have both of those guys out there, it's hard to get around him, his hands are huge. And so it reminds me a lot of Kawhi Leonard. Leonard has a very long wingspan, and he has very large hands. And when he wants to lock you down, he'll lock you down. And that's what I see the role of Tari Eason being for the Houston Rockets is, hey, I can see Stephen Silas, head coach Stephen Silas, telling him, I may not be able to get you a lot of offensive sets, meaning that you may have to get a lot of your points off of getting rebounds and putbacks, or, if you're open, you take the shot. But what I need you to do is lock in on the best player that they have on the opposite team. I need you to play him. And imagine this, because one thing that Josh Christopher does is he plays defense very well. So if you have Josh and Tari in the game, you can switch 1 and 2 on whichever the best player that they have at the time on the court. And so that's the one thing that I like about Tari Eason. I like his energy. And the one thing that I like also is that he takes pride in his game. You remember at the end of the game against Oklahoma City Thunder, he missed that free throw?
Oh, yeah. He went to Twitter right after. Yeah.
Yes. And so I asked him about that the next day at practice. I said, I seen you went to social media, someplace you say you really don't hang out a lot, and you talked about missing that free throw. And he says, I take pride in being a very good free throw shooter. And he said, when I missed that free throw, it bothered me. And so that's the type of guy that you want on your team.
And it just feels like that offensively, well, I guess to close the loop on the defensive discussion, the reason I brought up the Paolo example, it's been sort of eating at me seeing all these people on Twitter that basically have no idea of what goes into stopping guys at the level of Paolo Banchero. Seriously, if you can offer any rival NBA head coach a deal before any Orlando game this year in which Paolo plays, and you tell the coach, hey, every possession that Paolo is in the game, we can play the game out unscripted, or you can give him a semi-contested off-balance 19-footer. They're taking the semi-contested 19-footer every possession all day, and you will live with the results. Because guess what? He's going to get a lot better than that opportunities, that is, in many other cases. And I think that's a microcosm of Tari's defense, because one thing that I like, he's a good defender, but he doesn't strike me as crazy aggressive. Like, if you remember, like Pat Beverly, when he first started out, and he's improved a little bit, although not fully in this regard, he would get so amped up. Remember 10 years ago when Bev would first start playing Russ, and he would get so amped up that you could almost count on Bev getting in foul trouble within like 5 minutes, just because he wanted to eat Russ alive that bad. And of course, Russell Westbrook knew that that's what he was trying to do, and he took advantage of that. Whereas Tari, he's got that so-called dog in him. That's all the rage on Twitter these days. You say so-and-so's got that dog in him. Somebody could respond to this with the infamous X-ray footage of Tari. But more seriously, he has the competitiveness, but he seems a lot more controlled on defense. He doesn't really take that many like unnecessary chances. And while he's had a few fouls, Monday night he had 4 in 29 minutes. The few fouls he gets, it feels like they're more in like transition sequences or loose balls. In terms of his man defense, he actually seems pretty disciplined. He doesn't get overly handsy or try to do too much, which I think bodes well and speaks to his high IQ. The other big thing that's changed, I want to talk about his offense. That first game, he had 14 and 13, but he shot just 6 of 17 from the field. Whereas the last 2 games, he shot 50% or better. Tonight, he had 22 points, 11 boards, 9 of 16 overall, 2 of 3 from three-point range. The last 2 games combined, he shot 3 of 6 on threes, which is really encouraging. People can say what they will about his form, but to this point, it is holding up, and especially if he's, settles for those corner shots. I think those corner shots are a lot easier to make work with that form than really the longer ones above the break. So at least as a corner three-point shooter, it looks like he's viable. What's been the difference in your eyes in terms of him being more efficient offensively? Is it just that he's making more shots, or is he picking his spots better? Because, the one thing I remember after game 1, Coach Higgins said after the game that he basically ran out of energy by the end of that game. He was playing so hard in his NBA debut that in the fourth quarter, he just didn't have much gas left in the tank. And of course, when that happens, you're going to leave shots short. You're not going to have that much energy when you're going near the rim. Whereas the last 2 games, he's been, at least from what I can see on TV, picking his shots, picking his spots better. And in turn, that may be making him a more efficient shooter. Is that what you're seeing?
Of course. And when I was the one who asked Coach Higgins about that, saying, talking about Jabari's energy. And that's what he said. He said he just didn't have any at the end because he gave so much. And, I asked Tari the exact same question. And he says, I just had to learn. I'm going to have to learn how to use my energy a little bit better. So I'm not that I won't expend it all and during the first 3 quarters, and I'll have something left at the end. What Tari takes pride, and we talked about earlier when we was talking about pride, and when he said that he bothered him to miss that free throw. But Tari takes a lot of pride in his game, and with him taking a lot of pride in his game, he wants to be the best. I don't know if you paid attention in the San Antonio Spurs game where he was hitting a lot of corner threes, and he was shooting a lot of corner threes. That's something that he's been working on in practice. That's something that he's been working on with Coach John Lucas on the side, doing some work as far as
PJ Tucker model. Yep.
Yes, hitting that corner 3. He said after game 1 against the Orlando Magic that's something that he has to work on. He says, I have to work on being able to hit the corner 3 when I'm open. And for the next 2 games, that's what he's been working on. He's gotten better and better. Now, we know that, once the NBA grind starts and you're not playing in the same gym, in the same city, doing the exact same thing every night, when you're traveling, in back-to-backs and you're playing 5 games in 8 days, it's going to be a little bit different. When you hit that wall of playing an NBA schedule compared to playing a NCAA schedule, then it may be a little different because he may not have the legs. Right now, he does have the strong legs being able to hit that shot. So as time goes on, that's one thing that I want to see, how these young guys are able to deal with fatigue, and especially a high energy person like Tari Eason. I would say that the one person he probably needs to talk to about how to be able to conserve that type of energy and still be effective on the offense and the defensive end is Jae'Sean Tate. Because Jae'Sean Tate plays with a lot of energy, and he has to because he's undersized for the position that they had him at, but he still plays with a lot of energy and brings a lot of intensity. And if Tari Eason can learn how to do that, how to hone that energy out while perfecting his game, especially on the offensive end, and being able to knock down those shots. Because you look at it like this: if he's able to be an offensive weapon, if he can give you 12 to 14 points a game and maybe like eight rebounds, 12, let's just say 14 and 8. Like, that's really good to have coming off the bench. And that would give Coach Silas more of an option to be able to play around with more of the lineups as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The other big thing that I'm watching in Summer League beyond Jabari and Tari, and we touched on him earlier, Daishen Nix, and I guess we can throw TyTy Washington into this discussion as well, but really the options they have at point guard, because for a lot of reasons I do think that they want to have a more traditional approach to that position. We'll see what happens with Kevin Porter Jr., but quite frankly, even if Kevin Porter Jr. does pan out and builds on his strong finish to last season as the primary starter, well, you still need a backup, and I think it's clear again that the Rockets want Josh Christopher, that is, to be a combo guard, primarily play at shooting guard, and have somebody else that can really run the offense. And to this point, through the first game, I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, hey, should they give TyTy Washington the backup spot from day one and just see what happens? But since then, boy, Daishen Nix has really made his case, and that's not really a shot against TyTy because, quite frankly, Daishen has been a professional for a year now. He's a year ahead of TyTy, so quite frankly, he should be more advanced in his career at this stage. So if TyTy is not the backup, if he plays some in the G League this year, that's not a shot at his skills at all. It's just he's further behind in his development relative to Daishen Nix. But boy, while TyTy has been, I'd say, if you were grading these guys on, expectations, scale of 1 to 10, TyTy's been pretty solid. I'd give him like a 7 out of 10 so far. He's had his moments, and he had the floater that actually won the game against the Spurs in the final 30 seconds, or against the Thunder, in the final 30 seconds on Saturday. But boy, Daishen has been, in my opinion, the biggest surprise. I know there's still 2 games to play, but Daishen Nix running the offense like a legit NBA point guard, something the Rockets really did not have for a lot of last season. Hopefully Kevin Porter Jr. grows into that, but even if KPJ is capable of being that guy, well, you still need a backup. And, again, you can just see it in Jabari getting more efficient, Tari getting more efficient. Whenever the Rockets gave the keys to Daishen Nix, that is what has unlocked these last 2 wins. And to me, he's been by far the biggest surprise. And so no disrespect to TyTy Washington, but at this point, assuming the roster stays as is, I think I'd bet on Daishen Nix being the backup point guard from day one. Are you in that camp?
Oh, for sure. And I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't at first. And I wasn't at first because with Daishen, it's his confidence. And the last 2 games, he has become a lot more vocal. And with him being vocal, it's starting to help him have more confidence. And I think these summer league games is allowing him he's getting back to that G League mindset. He, in the 24 games that he played with the Rockets last season, he didn't look bad. He looked like he was scared to make a mistake. And, in the NBA,
right, I agree.
You got to have short-term memory, like we talked about earlier with Jabari Smith. You got to have that short-term memory, and if you make a mistake, you just keep going. But his mindset was always, if he made a mistake, he didn't want to get pulled out of the game. He didn't want to do wrong because, of course, his minutes were limited. And on last season, I thought that a lot of his lack of confidence came from him being undrafted because, I mean, he's a very good player. He is a very, very good player. And for him to go undrafted, I was kind of surprised, especially with the way that he plays. And so I think that may have messed with his confidence a little bit. And this summer league is starting to help him to gain more confidence. And I also think that by the Houston Rockets drafting TyTy Washington, giving him some sort of competition for that backup role, pushing him. And TyTy said it last game that he's also coaching me. He said we play the same position, but he's coaching me. And if the Rockets can get this Daishen Nix in season, it will help their rotation a lot because he is a big guard. He is a very smart guard. Coach Higgins says that his basketball IQ is out the roof. And so having TyTy may be the thing that pushes him to the next level because he knows that, hey, I got to make sure that I stay balling like I have been doing the last 2 games, or I could find myself back in the G League with TyTy having the backup point guard role for the Houston Rockets. Now, what I would say is this, Ben, I would love to see, and especially in the preseason games, I would love to see a lineup that had TyTy at the point, Daishen at the 2, and Josh at the 3.
Which we saw starting the second half of each of these last 2 games.
Yes. I would love to see that type of I would like to see that lineup, not for a very long time, but because with TyTy and Daishen, you can switch out you can switch out primary ball handlers, and they both know how to run the offense. You remember at the end of the half, so two plays have stuck out to me when it comes to Daishen Nix at the end of halves in the Oklahoma City Thunder game and in the San Antonio Spurs game. In the Oklahoma City Thunder game, he made the play to get the ball to TyTy Washington, who pump fake Jalen Williams, stepped to the side and hit the three. But what Daishen did was he held the ball long enough because he knew that TyTy was trailing and nobody was really holding him. Jalen was in between Josh Christopher, and then he had to decide if he was going to take Josh Christopher or if he was going to take TyTy coming up. In the San Antonio Spurs game, with time winding down, he was dribbling the ball out, and Tari, Eason, and Jabari was at the top of the key, and they went to run the play, and he said, "No, wait, just hold on." And he held him at bay, and then he said, "Let's run the play." Ran the play, got Jabari Smith a wide open three-point at the top of the key. Those are the type of things that I wouldn't have expected from Daishen Nix, especially not last season. But to see that type of growth this season, I love it.
And by and large, the Rockets are 2-1 through 3 summer league games. The positives have clearly outweighed the negatives because, you've won more games than you've lost, despite having a very young roster. It's not like any of, your true stud young guys like Jalen or Şengün are playing. So a lot of these guys like Jabari and Tari are learning on the fly in their first few games. And I thought that OKC game in particular, that OKC lineup for a summer league team is loaded. Obviously Chet is Chet, but you've got legit NBA players, Josh Giddey, who actually beat out Jalen for Rookie of the Month, I think in 3 different months this year. Trey Mann's out there, Jeremiah Robinson Earl. They've got some legit guys. And then you factor in the 2 Jalen Williams, Aaron Wiggins. They've got some pretty talented guys. And for the Rockets to beat that team, even with Jabari not shooting that well, that speaks to how dialed in they were defensively. I think Rick Higgins has done a great job keeping these guys bought in. The energy is very positive. And of course, when we talk defense, it starts with Jabari and Tari, of course. As young as they are absolutely dynamic together, especially with how they can switch and guard so many different positions. So again, by and large, positives clearly outweigh the negatives. If I had to pick, biggest disappointment, I think the guy that I would point to is Anthony Lamb, just because this is Lamb's 3rd year with the Rockets. And I should say, in fairness to Lamb, this format is not ideal for him. Summer League does not have a ton of structure. So if you don't really create your own offense, if you play off of other guys, and when he was in the G League last year playing well, he was largely playing off of Daishen Nix and Trevelin Queen. Yeah. Now Nix is on the floor now, but clearly there's a greater priority on developing Jabari and Tari. So Lamb's a little bit lower in the pecking order. With that said, for a guy that's, looking to be on the Rockets for a 3rd straight year, he's the type of veteran in his mid-20s that I would like to have seen more from in Summer League if he's going to make a case for a roster spot again. And maybe that's something that still happens. There's 2 games still left. But in my opinion, he's the one guy who, again, it's not all his fault. It's not like he's even had that many shot attempts, but it just feels like at his age and at this stage of his career, he should be doing more than he is in Summer League. So if I had to pick a disappointment, I think it would be Anthony. Where are you at on that?
I'm with you 100%, Ben. In the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second half, they started TyTy instead of Anthony Lamb, who had been starting up until that point. And against San Antonio Spurs, they started TyTy in the game and brought Anthony Lamb off the bench. And
same thing.
I'm thinking that his confidence is shot. Now, what could help him is Coach Mahmoud is there. And because he knows Anthony Lamb on a personal level, because he did coach him last season with the Rio Grande Vipers, right?
Valley Vipers, yeah.
Valley Vipers, the G League affiliate for the Houston Rockets. With him being on the bench, if anybody can help him regain his confidence, it would be Coach Mahmoud. But watching him play against San Antonio, I didn't like his body language. His body language Yeah, his body language. Once he got down, once he started, he missed a shot. He shot an air ball. He had a turnover. He got beat on defense, and then after that, his body language just said, "I don't even want to
Yeah,
be in this
I
game
thought
anymore."
yeah, I thought the one that was really telling was that offensive foul he picked up, which was so blatant. Like he wanted to see a ball go through the bucket so bad. He was right underneath, and he just chicken winged the hell out of it to send the guy flying. And a lot of times guys flop on chicken wings. Not that one. That was a legit shove, and you could just tell like his body language was poor. It's just sort of like things aren't going my way. And of course, the refs are going to see that. And again, just another sort of bad night at the office for him. Ended up with 1 of 3 shooting, just 3 points in his 16 minutes. And again, just for a guy with his profile, having 2 NBA seasons under his belt, he needs to do more.
Yes,
Sarge, before we close up this podcast, the last guy I want to touch on is the guy you wrote a story on a couple of days ago, Aric Holman. I know it's tough because the Rockets have a pretty crowded front court. Even without Usman Garuba, we're seeing so much from Jabari and Tari already. But it shouldn't come as a surprise if maybe the Rockets shut down Jabari early. Not saying I've heard that, but it does happen. If you notice, the Magic are not playing Paolo Banchero tonight. We know last year the Rockets did not have, Jalen left early with an injury, but Şengün also did not play all 5 games. And this is really a trend. Like you see your rookies enough to build them confidence, but very rarely do you see them play all 5 games. So if any of these big guys take a game or 2 off over these final 2, the guy I want to see more from is Holman, who has played fairly well at times, had 6 boards in his 12 minutes tonight. We've seen him hit a couple of threes. We've seen him have some nice rejections at the rim. He's got athleticism. And the Rockets do have a vacancy as far as the backup center. It's been talked about. The Rockets in a perfect world would sign a backup center this offseason behind Alperen Şengün, someone that's a little more athletic and versatile than Boban is. The problem is, and as you know from covering this team, the Rockets are prioritizing having all this cap space a year from now. So Rafael Stone doesn't want to give out a lot of money to a backup who's going to be on his books a year from now. So he's probably going to go bargain shopping for somebody that's willing to, take a cheap 1-year deal to prove it. And, there's other options in free agency, but, I've seen things at times from Aric Holman, who's 6'9". He's got bounce, to where he could conceivably be an option. So I guess as the Rockets wind down Summer League, besides just wanting to see everybody stay healthy, and I suppose we should also point out that if any of the big guns go out, you could also see TyTy Washington get more usage, and we can see how TyTy plays, especially if Daishen Nix sits out one of those games and TyTy gets to be the primary floor general. We can see what happens there. But beyond just the obvious guys, the core 5 or 6 that we've been talking about, in terms of those reserves, to me, Hallman's the guy that really I'd like to see more of, because not saying for sure he's a guy they should sign, but at least he could potentially play his way into the mix as a young guy that maybe they consider. What stands out to you about him, and what did he tell you the other day?
Well, Ben, you put me in a very bad position right now, and I'm going to tell you why you put me in a very bad position. First of all, let me say this. Monday was Aric Holman's birthday. So, hey, I know he's going to be listening to this. Yeah, happy birthday. And Ben, you put me in a bad situation, and I'm jokingly saying that, of course. But, I am a huge Bruno Fernando.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
I am I'm a huge Bruno Fernando guy. And I'm also now a Holman guy, Aric Holman guy. So, Aric Holman guy. So, the Rockets have a really good problem. Let me just say that. They have a really good problem because they're going to have to decide out of these 2 guys. Both of them play with a lot of energy. Both of them protect the rim very well. Both of them rebound very well. But I think where Holman beats out Fernando is he can shoot better.
Yeah.
You got a guy who could shoot the 3. And with him being able to shoot the 3 and with the offense that the Houston Rockets run, he's going to get a lot of open shots. Now, he isn't consistent with hitting that shot, but he is a better outside shooter, better perimeter shooter than Bruno, even though, listen, Ben, you remember last season when Bruno finally got in the game? I think one night, his first game, he was perfect from the field, 7-7.
Yeah, that Dallas game, he was nuts.
Yeah.
And then one of the Sacramento games too, yeah.
Yeah, and so, you look at it, you're like, wow, here's a guy who has this type of energy, who can play the game, who is like dominant inside the paint. But with what the Rockets need, it's what Aric Holman has. So he's standing out for me as far as reserves are concerned. I thought that we would see more from Trey Mitchell and with Trevor Hudgens. How do you pronounce his name? Ben
Hudgens, I think.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to butcher his name. Here, that guy can score. Reminds me a lot of Chris Clemens. He can really, light it up. He's just too small. He's just and with the way that these guards are growing and coming into the league, these 19, 20-year-old guards that are coming in and they're, get into the league and they grow 3 more inches. It's one of those things where you root for him. He can play the game. Josh Christopher said the other day, that guy can ball no matter where he comes from. Nobody, we don't look at him as a D2 player. We know that he won D2 player of the year 2 years in a row. We don't look at him like that. This guy can play the game. What hinders him and what hampers him is his size. And so, Holman is the guy that has shined off of that Rockets bench.
Yeah. And we should point out, by the way, that they could conceivably bring multiple young bigs to training camp and see what happens. Like, they have a pretty full roster now, but everybody knows that, a lot of those guys they got in the Christian Wood trade, the veterans like Marquise Chris, Trey Burke, and probably Sterling Brown as well, they're not going to make it to camp. The Rockets are keeping them because, quite frankly, they have tradable salaries. So you wait until later in the offseason. You never want to foreclose any possibilities and, never know if there's a deal that's to be had, then maybe you use them as salary. But if the roster stays as is, those guys are going to get released, and you can bring up to 20 players to camp. And so conceivably, you could bring multiple young guys. You could bring Bruno, and you could bring an even younger guy like Holman as well and let him battle it out. So I think I'll throw that out there as well before we sign off.
And let me say this too real quick, Ben. I want to make sure that I throw this out here that Trevor Hudgens already has a deal. He's
got his two-way. Yeah.
Yes. And so let me make sure that I put that out there so the fans won't think that he won't be on the team. He will be on the team.
Yeah. Assuming they don't give the two-way to somebody else, but I agree they probably won't. Like, there's a reason why they gave him. And we should point out, by the way, in fairness to Trevor, he's small, but that game against OKC, he made 3 of his 4 threes, and he had the best plus-minus on the whole roster. So it's sort of hit or miss. I agree he struggled tonight. He looked small, but there's something there you can see in the OKC game too. So there's a good chance that I think he gets to camp too. In fact, he's the safest bet of any of them because when we talk about Trevor, Bruno, Holman, these end of the bench options, Trevor's the only one that has a real contract right now. So you can certainly still release a guy on a contract, but there's actual money tied up in it, so it makes it way more likely that that he gets to camp. Sarge, this has been fantastic stuff. Want to wrap up. I wanted this to be about a 30-minute podcast, but it went on because we had so much great insight, which is to be expected after you've been following them for a week out in Las Vegas. Thank you so much for doing that for Rockets Wire, and I know you did some work and some spots on Sports Talk 790 as well. I know you've got some content coming out the next few days, so for anybody that's going to be reading you at Rockets Wire, I'll be pumping it on my Twitter as well, but just give our listeners an idea of what you're working on.
So coming up, I want to talk about the way that the Houston Rockets Summer League team has responded defensively. They in the second half of the Oklahoma City game, they played very well. And in that third quarter against San Antonio Spurs, they held them to 11 points. So I'll be writing about the defense. I'll be writing about Josh Christopher and his resurgence against the San Antonio Spurs, and a couple of other things that I got working on. I can't give it all away, Ben.
There you go.
Rockets Wire in order to be able to find the rest of that great content.
I appreciate the plug, Sarge. Folks, he is Brian Barefield. You can read his work at rocketswire.usatoday.com. I believe it'll also read directly if you just type in rocketswire.com. Pretty simple. And of course, you can hear him a lot of times in the trenches on Sports Talk 790, 10 to 12 on a lot of days, right? You and ND?
Yes, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But this week I'll be in from Tuesday to Friday. ND is getting ready to go out of the country, so I'll be sitting in with Chris Gordy.
Chris Gordy, my man. Yep. So you and Gordy, Tuesday through Friday, 10 to noon on Sports Talk 790. We'll be listening. Folks, again, he is Big Sarge, official name Brian Barefield, of course, when I read his work at the Rockets Wire. And this, of course, is where we will wrap it. I'm Ben DuBose. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben DuBose. Brian is on there at Big Sarge Sports with a Z, right?
Yep.
There we go. Big Sarge Sports with a Z. And then, of course, we both work with RocketsWire at rocketswire.usatoday.com and Sports Talk 790, which you can listen to at sports790.com if you're not by your radio dial in the Houston market. With that, we will sign off. For Brian, I'm Ben. Thanks as always to listening for yet another episode of The Lager Line, sponsored by Clutch City Lager of Karbach Brewing. Have a good night, guys.